Hi everyone, I hope you're having an amazing day today. I'm incredibly excited because today I'm launching a new series on my channel called A Very Necessary Deep Dive of whatever TV show I feel like talking about at the moment. And I want to begin with one of the most chaotic and diabolical shows to ever grace the face of teen television, The Secret Life of the American Teenager. Raise your hand if you were scarred by the show at age 11.
Scared.
Me too. In today's video, we'll be covering season 1, and I'm going to do it in 3 parts. So this is going to be part 1 of the series. So grab a snack, some popcorn, your anxiety medication. You're going to need it because we're in for a wild ride. If you, for some reason, don't know what The Secret Life of the American Teenager is, I'm happy for you. That means you remained unscathed. The Secret Life of the American Teenager was a teen drama show that ran on ABC Family from 2008 to 2013. It was one of the most popular shows on the network in its heyday. I would say it was probably the most popular show until PLL came around the corner and dethroned it. Rightfully so, they really didn't stand a chance. Before we get into the show, we have to talk about the main characters. If you do not care about this part and want to get straight to episode 1, please go to the chapters tab and go to where episode 1 is and click there. But for the rest of us, let's get into these characters. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be very biased when I'm describing these characters, so don't look to me if you want an objective point of view. Okay, let's start with Amy Jurgens. She is the main character on the show. I would say her personality traits are whiny, immature, selfish. She has very strict tunnel vision. If you are not in her peripheral view, she does not see you. You don't exist. Everyone likes to hate on her, rightfully so, but she's not the worst character on this show. I'll explain later. Next is Ricky Underwood. This is my favorite character on the show. He is the only level-headed person in this cinematic universe. He's very much surrounded by idiots. I would say he most definitely got like the Nathan Scott treatment in the beginning of the show. He was the bad boy, and we knew he was a bad boy because he skipped class and carried drumsticks in his back pocket because he was the drummer in the school band. Yeah, he was into some really shady shit. Not really, but they try to make us think that, so we move. Next up is Ben Boykowicz, which is crazy because if you watch the captions of the show, they always spell it Boykovich, so which is it? I don't have much to say about him except for the fact that he's lazy, boring, and very much entitled. He's also very dumb and has no life skills, and I won't apologize for saying that. Okay, next up is Adrienne Lee. She very much deserved better. Not only was she the realest bitch in the room, she was also the smartest. Do not let her looks fool you. Straight A's up in this bitch. She was also known to be the school slut, even though she really only cared about one person throughout the entire show, so I don't really know where they got that information from. She had a lot of strength to not beat everyone's ass because she was constantly being disrespected, especially by her so-called best friend. Like, she had enough. But she never laid a hand on anyone because she always looked good at a moment's notice. You would never catch her lacking. Even in season 4, at her absolute worst, she still looked good. She was the only one that had her nails done, got a pedicure, and got her hair did. She clearly streamed Flow every morning before majorette practice. Okay, let's talk about Grace now. I don't care what any of y'all say. Grace is the real villain of this show. I feel like everyone likes to point the finger at Amy, but they're not looking in the corner and see Grace like lurking in the shadows. She's very much there. She's a terrible friend, a mediocre daughter, and even worse sister, and an overall menace to society. She is described as a fickle girl during the show. I like to call her Delulu, on the highest level of Delulu. She lives in her own world. Okay, next up is Jack. He's a loser and he needs to get up. Okay, we're gonna go through these side characters really fucking quick. It's gonna be like lightning round over here. Ashley Jurgens. I'm kind of neutral when it comes to Ashley. Sometimes I really like her, sometimes I don't, but for the most part, she's clearing everyone when it comes to a good reading. You can't get by and do something wrong without Ashley talking to you and putting you in your place about it first. So I like her for that purpose. George. The only question I have is how did he manage to get 3 bad bitches in his lifetime? The math is not mathing. As far as Anne goes, She doesn't bother me that much, but I still find her kind of annoying. I've never really truly rooting for her. It's just more like, I don't know. I don't care. Tom Bowman, he's the only person that has his shit together on the show. He's always hustling, learning, working, and giving advice to everyone else. He is also too surrounded by idiots. Okay, and for the sidekicks of the show, Madison was annoying, but she eventually knew her self-worth. Lauren was surrounded by white people with absolutely no types of sense. I very much felt bad for her, like, free my good sis. Henry had no spine and he is slightly misogynistic, but not enough to where I really dislike him. And lastly, Alice, I like her and I wish she had more friends. Free her too. Okay, let's get into season 1. The pilot episode opens up with Amy walking home from band practice. She gets home and her mom is complaining about the fact that she gets home super late and how she has no fun. She's like, girl, you're a teen once. Go out, party, get crazy. Amy then runs into the bathroom and she pulls out a brown bag from her instrument case while her mom is heating up some food for her. Anne says, I could call up that Kim Jong-il wannabe if you want, when she's describing her music teacher. 5 points for Anne. That was kind of funny. I also want to point out a scene later in the episode where Ashley, who is Amy's little sister, gets in trouble at school and she's complaining about the fact that she got in trouble because she was wearing a crop top. And George, their father, takes this as she's ready to have sex. So I guess she's the bad sister. He then says this.
Break the school's rules, you broke our rules. The rules are good taste.
Respectfully, I'm not taking any fashion advice from George. Please be serious. Anyways, back to the first scene. She pulls out that brown paper bag and it's a pregnancy test. As her microwave dings, Amy is holding the pregnancy test and looking in the mirror like, oh, I think I did something bad. And then we go into the theme song of the show. Falling in love is such an easy thing to do. I recently found out a couple of weeks ago that it was actually Molly Ringwald that sang it, and she plays Amy and Ashley's mom in the show. We then get to the high school where the kids are learning and gossiping and mingling, and Girlfriend by Avril Lavigne is playing very aggressively. This show is so 2007's core. I love it. I also want to point out that Henry and Alice are walking together, like hand in hand, each wearing an earphone. Me personally, I cannot walk straight to save my life, so this would not be ideal. I very much could not be a teenager in 2008. All the characters are seen within the first minute or so, but right now we're focused on a conversation that Amy is having with her best friends Lauren and Madison. They're talking about, 15-year-old girl things. They're gossiping about the new school counselor that just came to the school and everyone thinks he's so cute. And Amy's out here being like a Debbie Downer. Like, why do you not care about the new school counselor, Mark Molina? Her friends are just like, what's going on? Like, what's good? What's tea? And Amy's just like, I had sex. And they're like, no, you didn't. What do you mean? And she's just like, it just happened at band camp. It just happened. Like, whoops, accidentally did it. And they're just like, okay, is that it? And Amy's just like, no, I think I'm pregnant. This is when we really, like, something shifted in society, because the girls are just like, oh my God, who's the father? And Amy's just like, oh, y'all don't know him. But it's revealed to the audience that it's actually Ricky, the school bad boy and the drummer in the school band. He's also known to be the school man whore. What I personally find very appalling about this whole thing is that their whole encounter with each other happened in a span of 2 seconds.
No, I didn't exactly realize what was happening until like after 2 seconds, and then it was just over.
It's not looking good for you, Ricky. Ricky seems to have a very troubled past, as he goes to see a therapist pretty often to work out his issues with having constant. It's revealed that his father abused him as a child, and that kind of explains like why he acts the way he does. Meanwhile, Ben is talking to his sidekicks Henry and Alice about how he still hasn't lost his virginity. maybe there's a reason for that. Their advice to him is to find a girl that would actually be desperate enough to want to sleep with him. It's important to note that up until this point, Ben has had a huge crush on Grace Bowman, like borderline Mariah Carey obsessed. And I was like, why are you so obsessed with me? Alice tells him she's not a goddess, she's a Christian. Why Henry is also staring at Grace in front of Alice is very questionable. Alice, I need you to leave. So Alice points Amy out to him and he's like, oh, she's kind of cute. What's her name? And Alice is just like, oh, that's Amy. She plays the French horn. And he's like, okay, I'll settle for her. She seems to have just enough low self-esteem to actually go out with me. I'm not gonna lie, I can kind of see it. This outfit is absolutely insane. So instead of, going up to her and asking her out, he then goes as far as to harass the new school counselor, Mark Molina, forcing him to change his schedule to join band, even though Ben technically can't join the same band class as Amy because she's at a high level up here and he has no rhythm. So instead he settles for being in like entry level band, I guess, but that his brain doesn't work very properly because how does that get you to talk to Amy? I don't know. But he later ends up calling her anyways to ask her out and she says yes. Ricky and Adrian are introduced to us as kind of being like friends with benefits, but it's very clear that they're playing games with each other.
When are you gonna quit teasing me, Adrian? I'm hurting here. Past 2 nights have almost killed me.
I'm looking for the cameras because he cannot be serious. On the other hand, the strongest couple seems to be Jack and Grace. They're very much like the cheerleader and jock duo. But there's a bit of a twist. Grace is a Christian and she is saving herself for marriage. And yes, she very much makes this her personality trait throughout the season. Jack has a very big problem with this. He's 16. He only has, that one thing on his mind. And he's like, okay, how long is it gonna take for us to get married? And she's like, I don't know, it's gonna take some time, I want to go to medical school. He's like, how long is medical school? What can I do to speed up the process? I want to have sex now. Me personally, I think Jack is completely focused on the wrong things. He's absolutely not getting any bitches with that fuck ass bowl cut on his head. So instead of being like okay, or breaking up with Grace, what does he do? He hooks up with Adrian. It's alluded to us that Adrian is the school slut, and we know this because she carries around a baton and carries a purse instead of a backpack. I think they just hated bad bitches. Later on, there is a school dance after the football game that all caps everyone is going to. But I really think everyone only showed up because Grace went up to each person and asked them to come. Ricky finds Amy at the dance and is just like, you need to leave loser Ben. He's not your type. And Amy's just like, no. Jack also finds Adrian at the dance begging her not to say anything about what they did, and they end up kissing at the school dance. Grace sees this and breaks up with Jack. And the episode ends with Ben and Amy dancing all alone by themselves in the gym. And that is the end of the pilot episode. Overall, I think it was a really good introduction to the show. There were a lot of characters that needed to be introduced and they were pretty quick with it. They each had their own distinct personalities. You can kind of figure out who you like, who you don't, and I feel like the story is pretty solid. In episode 2, Amy is acting very delulu about her pregnancy. She doesn't want to talk about it or acknowledge the fact that it's happening. While she's talking about it with Lauren and Madison, Ben's friends Henry and Alice over here, and they are flabbergasted. Ricky is also acting like the victim, saying Adrian cheated on him, and he's ranting about it to Amy, and she clearly does not give a fuck. He also randomly decides that he wants Amy and tries to get at her. And she's like, I got a man now. You can go. Adrian then tries to apologize for what happened and Ricky's not having it. He then tells her that she doesn't have class. That's hilarious coming from him. But all of this happening doesn't really stop Ricky and Adrian from being together. Now that Ben has gone on one date with Amy, he has decided that she is the love of his life and he is going to marry her one day. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Henry and Alice then tell Ben that, her and Ricky have been together. And he's like, My little Amy would never do such a thing. It's very much giving Joe from Dance Moms. After this, he is convinced that Ricky is now his enemy. He hates this man. But Amy and Ben are still good, and he actually ends up telling her that he loves her. And at first she's just like, I barely know you. We've been on one date. But then she says she loves him too. Amy then confronts Ricky and is asking him, have you been telling people about what we did? She like grabs him by the arm and he responds with this.
Hey, watch it. That's my livelihood.
I have to laugh. That's funny. Anyways, he's like, I didn't tell anybody. Check your friends. Meanwhile, Jack is trying to get back together with Grace after publicly embarrassing her by cheating on her with Adrian in front of everyone, and rightfully so. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She ends up trying to leave school early, but somehow puts all of the blame on Adrian. Grace's mom talks some sense into her, and she's just like, Jack is no good for you. You need to move on. Don't worry, this doesn't last for very long. After multiple attempts of trying to get her back and even going as far as to show up at her house and telling her father, I really want to be with Grace, she now wants him back. Grace's father is just like, you need to get up and forget about this man. He dogged you. She's not listening to anyone's opinions about it, and she forgives him. Well, sorta, kinda. She asks him if he did anything more than kiss Adrian, and he's like, what kind of guy do you take me for? Of course not. At this point, they're kind of good, but Grace has a couple of conditions before they get back together. One, she needs to get permission from her parents to want to date him again. And two, he can never pressure her about having sex ever again. And Jack agrees, but we do not support dumb behavior over here, so we move on. In the next episode, Anne and Ashley run into Dr. Hightower, which is the same doctor that Amy went to go visit about her pregnancy. She tells them that Dr. Bowman, which is Grace's dad, is also one of the new doctors there, and Ashley then tells this information to Amy. So why this is important is, yes, Dr. Bowman is Grace's dad, and Grace's mom used to be married to George, Amy and Ashley's dad. So now Amy is worried that the entire Bowman clan knows about her pregnancy. Ben and Amy have their first kiss. We didn't move. In a subplot, Grace is begging her parents to date Jack. And they're like, that's not gonna happen. Find someone else. So Ricky manages to somehow convince Grace to use him as a cover so her and Jack can like sneak behind her parents' back by saying that Grace is dating Ricky. So I guess he's a better option than Jack. But Ricky very much has ulterior motives going on here. He's trying to get with Grace, even though he got mad at Adrian for being with another guy. Oh, okay. So Ricky and Grace end up going on their date. And since Grace's parents are not idiots, they very much see what's going on here, but they just let it be. Adrian obviously gets jealous by this whole thing going on, and she goes to Ricky and is just like, what are you doing here? You're not gonna get anything from this girl. Focus on me. It's very apparent that she has feelings for Ricky and just wants to spend more time with him, but Ricky is over here trying to be a city boy. And Amy finally tells someone about her pregnancy. Her 13-year-old sister. Because that's such a great idea. In episode 4, Grace gets harassed by these loser men and has to use a beer bottle to defend herself. We love a girl with survivor skills. Ricky comes in just in time before anything bad really happens, but he has his shirt off because he was just with Adrian not even 2 minutes ago. Yeah, he real messy. We do meet Ricky's foster parents in this episode, and we love them over here. So Jack is mad that Ricky saved Grace while not having a shirt on, and he somehow manages to put all the blame on Grace, even though he's the one that left her there all alone. And she's like, actually, none of this would have happened if you would have never kissed Adrian. Ricky is absolutely loving all of this. Grace is telling him that, Jack is being a jerk, and he's like, wow, that's crazy. Me personally, I would never do that to you. Adrian is tired of Ricky's shenanigans.
This is his shirt. This is where he left it.
She ate right here. She ate right here. And Jack also does this.
See this? This is what a real man looks like.
Lauren is also tired of Amy's whining and complaining and tells her to stand up and do something about the baby. She also calls out Madison for not saying any of this to her face when Lauren and Madison have had multiple conversations about it, and Madison's just like, oh, who said that? It's also now confirmed that Grace's parents do know about Amy's pregnancy. We also meet Adrian's mom in this episode when she comes home from a game and her mom has a male visitor at home. So we can kind of see their relationship with each other, or lack thereof, and how Adrian views because of it. Anyways, Amy's parents are fighting a lot. The girls are fighting today, and Anne is noticing that George has been staying out late quite frequently, and she's getting a little bit suspicious. So while all this is going on, Ben is being clingy and annoying, and Amy is tired of his antics. At this point, Ricky is still being Grace's cover, but now it's actually kind of for real. They actually kind of like each other now. And Jack is still mad about the whole saving Grace situation, and he decides to start hanging out with Adrian to make Grace jealous, and Adrian agrees to this because she's trying to make Ricky jealous too. It took him about 2 episodes to do something stupid again, so remember that about Jack. We also meet Ben's dad in this episode, and he's starting to speculate that Amy is pregnant. Ben is like, what are you talking about? I only kissed her. We don't do anything. How Ben's dad is able to see this before Ben is really shows how dumb Ben really is. In the next episode, Amy and Ben are on a picnic date, and I will admit I do like that Ben planned a picnic date for them, so he gets 5 cool points for that. But then he gets on his dumb boy antics and proposes to her. They've only known each other for maybe a month, and Amy's just like, who told you I'm pregnant? And he was just like, it was my dad. But he's just like, it doesn't matter. I love you. I want to marry you. So let's tell everyone, including your parents, that that is my child. It's our baby together. And I'm going to take care of you. The only reason he's saying all this is because his father is rich. Anne is now pretty much convinced that George is cheating on her, and she ends up kicking George out of the house, and Ashley is begging him not to go. He's out here trying to be like Serena Vanderwoodson on his I gotta go. Adrian and Jack are still hanging out with each other, and Adrian's mom comes by to talk to her just for a quick second. Her mom mentions that one of her friends is gonna come stay with them for a little bit. Remember that male visitor I mentioned in the last episode? Yeah, that friend. She then says that this friend has 2 daughters named Amy and Ashley. So we then conclude that that male friend was George. Amy is leaning more towards having an abortion, and Ben is like, whoa, let's not get hasty here. Just have it and marry me. What's the issue? I need Amy to get up and have a backbone. She cannot talk to one person without crying or stuttering. More and more people are finding out about Amy's pregnancy thanks to her 2 besties, Lauren and Madison, running their mouths. But it's also due to people noticing that Amy's body is changing. Where? She looks exactly the same. How would people even notice something like this? Aren't the kids supposed to be in class? They're also questioning whether the baby is Ben or Ricky's. Grace decides to not be dumb for about 1 second, and she figures out that Jack lied about only kissing Adrian. So when she goes up to him to confront him about it, he's a complete ass to her.
Shut up, Grace. I'm tired of being ashamed of myself. I've been ashamed of myself my whole life, so just shut up.
The SWAT team would not be able to pull me off of this man if he talked to me like this. But he then apologizes for it like an hour later. And finally, Amy decides to leave school and not come back. In episode 6, Amy finally tells an actual adult about her pregnancy, and she tells her mom about it. It's a really emotional scene, but for the most part, her mom is supportive of whatever choice that she wants to make, which is really good. Her dad also finds out about it in this episode, and he's in denial for a little bit, but for the most part, he's just like, it is what it is. By Amy not showing up to school, a lot of rumors start to spread that she's taken care of it. The way everyone seems to have an opinion on her having an abortion is very interesting. Amy asks Adrian to take her to a free clinic so she can go terminate the pregnancy. I also really like this one look on Amy. She ate that one little thing. Grace is out here trying to prevent Amy from getting an abortion because she's a Christian, I guess. But ultimately, Amy decides to not go through with it. In episode 7, Amy is still in hiding from all of her friends and everyone at school, and she decides to go away to have the baby at her grandmother's. Amy is kind of being bitchy, and Ashley puts her in check.
I'm waiting for you. You're gonna be late for school.
Yeah, well, at least I'm not going to be late for my period.
Oh, that's not. Ricky does not want to take any accountability for his child. He does not want any part of this. Also, him and Adrian are back together again. It's very toxic. Ricky's parents are encouraging him to go and talk to Amy, and he's just like, nah, I'm okay. Because George is, staying with Adrian and Adrian's mom, he comes by to eat something, I guess, and he finds Ricky at the apartment, and he's just like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Ricky, who the fuck are you? And George is like, I'm Amy's dad, motherfucker. Nothing really bad happens between them. The only thing George says is that, I would like to hurt you, but I don't feel like doing time for you, and I don't want to lose any business. But ultimately, he's just like, stay away from Amy. You have no say in the matter of whatever happens to this baby. Grace also forgives Adrian for what she did with Jack, so they're kind of cool now. George also breaks up with Adrian's mom by giving Adrian a desk. But Adrian likes the desk, so I guess she's okay with it. And finally, Ricky comes to Amy saying he wants to be involved with the decision making of the baby now. In the next episode, Amy's grandmother comes to visit Amy and help her pack all her things so they can go away back to her house. But it turns out that she actually has Alzheimer's disease. So that option of Amy staying with her is out of the window now. Adrian is also trying to show off her very new and very real friendship with Grace. This is her first actual friend. So she's just like, hey everyone, I made a friend. Adrian is also trying to find out who her father is with the help of the new school counselor, Mark Molina. I also want to point out a scene where Lauren and Madison are trying to seduce Ricky to, I guess, prove who's the cutest one between them. Anyways, Madison says this.
Oh, excuse me, Janet. It looks like you're about to have a wardrobe malfunction.
What did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? In the next episode, Amy and Ashley find out that George was dating Adrian's mom. Adrian then gets her dad's address from the school counselor and ends up waiting outside his house. She just wants to see what he looks like. He then sees her and is just like, yeah, this was not the agreement I had with your mother. Get lost. I have a family now. So this episode is not very good for Adrian. However, this episode was also very fun because Tom befriends a prostitute played by Jennifer Coolidge. Ricky has no friends and no one to hang out with, so he calls up Lauren and he's just like, hey, I'm bored. Do you want to hang out? And Lauren's just like, well, yes. Very randomly, Madison is also dating Lauren's brother. Madison is actually the one that wrote Victorious' My Best Friend's Brother is the One for Me. Run her the royalty checks. Anyways, while they're on a date, they both see Lauren kissing Ricky. Don't piss me off. This is also the only time we see Ricky use drumsticks. Anne eventually finds out about George's loser behavior, and they all also find out that he's been living at the furniture store that he owns. What I find incredibly funny about this is Ashley's only concern is whether or not they're poor now. She's asking the right questions. In the next episode, Amy's deciding whether or not to go to slut school, as everyone is calling it, or to come back to her old school. Honestly, is it even legal for Amy to have been out of school this entire time? She doesn't really strike me as a genius. She finally decides to go back to school and everyone supports her return. Well, almost everyone. Ricky isn't really with it. He doesn't want Amy to ruin his social life. Adrian's father also comes back and is just like, I actually kind of want to be in your life now, if that's cool with you. Why she answers the door in her bra is a bit concerning, but she looks good. So they're trying to get to know each other now, and he's out here trying to tell her what to do like he's her father. It's a little too late for that, sir. Lauren is very much in her flop era because she kissed Ricky and she does not feel bad about it. She's standing on business. But she's not going to tell Amy about it either. Why would she do that? It also turns out that Ricky's therapist is actually Lauren's dad, and he finds out that they kissed and he wants all the smoke. So I'm not sure if Ricky's gonna keeps seeing him as his therapist. Ben also got beat up in this episode, so I'm slightly happy. In the next episode, Adrian decides to run away because her parents are trying to parent her for once. She's also missing from school, and since the kids have absolutely nothing to do, rumors start flying that she ran away with the school counselor. I know most of the kids in the show are age 15 to 16, but how did they come up with that? It also gets out that Ricky is in therapy, thanks to Madison and Lauren not shutting their mouths again. And everyone is acting like he's in a psych ward or something.
I know what you're so upset about.
He's going to Lauren's father. Lauren's father only sees seriously disturbed people.
We also get a cameo from gymnastics Olympian Sean Johnson, whose interaction with Ricky is hilarious.
Hey, Sean?
Hey,
Hey, haven't seen you around. Where have you been?
where have I been?
Yeah.
Ricky then does a cartwheel, so clearly Sean Johnson as an Olympian does exist in this cinematic universe. Now that Adrian is gone, Grace sees this as an opportunity to be with Ricky, and they actually end up kissing. Turns out Adrian wasn't really running away, she just wanted to be by herself for a little bit and clear her thoughts, and she pretty much said fuck you to Grace and have fun with Ricky. In the next episode, I would say this is the beginning of Amy's poor decision making. If there's anything Amy will do, she will avoid doing any type of work. She does not want to work. So instead of taking some sort of responsibility for the child by getting a job, the best option isn't to give up the baby, it's marry Ben. But since they're minors and their parents most definitely won't let them get married, they end up getting fake IDs. Do you see what I mean when I say the people in this show are very idiotic? Even for a 15-year-old brain, this is quite concerning. Like, all this because Amy doesn't want to take care of her baby? The gang also joins by getting fake IDs too. Ben and Amy go through with their wedding, and there seems to be no questions asked by the wedding official regarding their age. They very much look like they're in middle school, but okay. I'm beginning to think the kids don't have enough schoolwork to do, because what do you mean they have the time and resources to attend a secret wedding? Where are their parents? George moves into the garage after Anne asks him for a divorce. In episode 13, George and Leo catch the kids at the wedding. Tom also wants to marry his girlfriend Tammy, which is honestly the only logical commitment that makes sense out of this whole group. The kids are very much not all right, because Ben and Amy are quite perplexed when they find out that their marriage isn't valid. The one that they use fake IDs for. They really feel they've been bamboozled here.
You're sure we're not married?
I'm sure.
But we exchanged vows.
Everyone is trying to find out how the kids got the fakes in the first place, and Jack ends up taking the fall for it, so he ends up having to do community service as a punishment. Also, Ricky and Adrian hook up behind Grace's back, but I'm not really mad at this. Adrian got her lick back. In episode 14, Jack's dad, who's like the town pastor or something, he comes by the Jurgens home to talk to Amy. My favorite interaction is Ashley opening the garage door, and it's just like, hey, I want to talk to you. And his response is, I'm here to serve. I don't think that you are. That outfit is terrible. Adrian keeps telling herself that Ricky really only cares about her and he doesn't actually give a fuck about Amy or Grace. I need Adrian to get up because this is getting very ridiculous. Also, Ricky's father gets out of prison and he's looking for Ricky, the same father that abused him as a child. He wants Ricky to give up the baby for adoption so he can pocket some of the money from it, like it's some sort of money laundering scheme. And everyone also finds out that Ricky was abused by his father. Amy and her family think that with everything they know about Ricky, him not being in the child's life would probably be the best option, so they start to consider adoption. Ben and Ricky want Amy to keep the baby, but for very different reasons. Ben keeps thinking this is partly his child for some reason. Y'all aren't really married. In episode 15, Ricky tells Grace's parents that he's going to stay away from her to protect her from his father. So I guess him and Grace aren't really together anymore. Whether his motivation comes from genuinely wanting to protect Grace or if he just doesn't want to pretend like he loves her is still a little bit gray, but it's still a very much good thing he did. Ben is also mad that Amy doesn't want him at the appointment where she finds out the sex of her baby, as if he's the father of it. Amy also finds out she's having a boy in this episode, so good for Amy. Jack sees Ricky's dad doing something shady while he's mentoring this kid for his community service in a gang area. Their version of a gang area is very funny to me because this area looks perfectly fine. It just has a lot of black people in it.
I gotta make a phone call.
No, not with me in the car. Look, you drive out the neighborhood before you make any phone call.
Clearly, Jack does not have any street smarts. This kid is saving his life right here. Grace's dad gives Ricky a really heartfelt talk saying if he ever needs anything, he can come to him to talk to him.
You can stop the cycle. I believe that. I believe in you.
Ricky's father ends up going back to jail after getting busted for buying drugs. Ricky's hair here is also very poly decoded. Episode 16 is where I've truly reached my limit with Ben and might honestly be his villain origin story. Ricky and Amy decide to meet up with each other to talk about what they should do with the baby. And Amy's obviously telling Ben, you can't come. You don't have anything to do with this. And Ben is very confused as to why he can't come. There's nothing up here but complaints and vibes. Ricky's just like, well, if you want to come, then come. Stand up. Ben comes anyway, and Amy's just like, what the fuck are you doing here? Ricky then tells Amy he doesn't want the baby to be adopted, and Amy's had enough.
I'm gonna change my mind. I don't want the baby adopted.
Fine. And it's yours.
After being there and talking to Ricky, Ben finally comes to the realization that he is not the father of this child and he has no say in whatever happens to it. Jack gets involved with some girl that's played by Bianca Lawson, but we don't care about Jack, so we move. Adrian's stepbrother, Max, comes by her house and is asking her, like, is my dad gonna leave my mom? Adrian is not concerned about that. She sees this man as just like, ooh, let's not talk about that. You look kind of good. And he's like, whoa, we're step siblings. And she's like, not really. Do you think I look good? And her father ends up finding them hooking up. Yeah, the writers are going to jail. Ricky and Grace are seeing each other yet again. I'm tired. But she then finds out that Ricky and Adrian are hooking up behind her back, so now she's really done. George is trying to get the baby adopted by his gay co-workers, which I'll give him points for. He ate that one little thing. And Ricky agrees to let Amy give the baby up for adoption. In episode 17, Ben tells Amy that he wants some space from her. Ben says this. And Amy is out here moping about it. The girls are fighting over Ricky. And yes, I mean Grace and Adrian. And Ricky's over here like, city boys up. But not really. They actually become closer to each other because they realize that fighting over him is quite ridiculous. Amy and George agree to let the gay couple adopt the baby so we can rest on that front. And Ricky decides he wants to be with Amy and is now done with Grace and Adrian after having one deep conversation with her. In the next episode, Ricky is dead set on getting with Amy and he's going to sabotage the adoption. And Amy is now questioning whether or not to be with Ricky because Ben isn't speaking to her and Ricky is. Grace and Adrian had a pact to not have anything to do with Ricky, and Grace is trying to back out of that pact. She's just like, well, I mean, if he wants to go out with me, then I guess I have to. I want Adrian to have better friends, honestly. Ashley tells Ben to stand up and get Amy back. Now, why would you do something like that? Adrian is still dating her stepbrother and he wants to take her out on a date. And since her brain is so fucked up after being with Ricky, she cannot understand the concept of a date. Her stepbrother's just like, I want to take you out to the movies, hold your hand, get to know you more. And she's like, why would you want to do that? If you just want to sleep with me, we can go out back and do that right now. Oh, that's not. And Donovan and Leon, which is the gay couple that originally agreed to adopt Amy's baby, they don't want the baby no more. Not because they don't want it, but it's more like they want to adopt kids from the foster care system. So it's for a good reason. In episode 19, Amy and Ben get back together again. No one moved. And Amy decides to not go through with an adoption because no one wants her baby. So now everyone's just like, okay, you know you're gonna have to get a job, right? And Amy's just like, oh, but I don't want to. Ben tells Ricky that he needs to give up on getting Amy because he's a brokey with no job.
Shouldn't take things that you can't pay for.
He had him gagged, I fear. I really don't like saying nice things about Ben, but he clocked him here. Anne gets her and Amy a job at a hot dog restaurant. Anne is very much in her working girl era since she's asked for a divorce from George. I love that for her. Amy hates it here, but like Kim K said, she needs to get up off her ass and work. Also, since when did Amy speak Spanish? Adrian is in her born again virgin era. She wants to like cleanse and start over, but that lasts for about 5 minutes. While working at the hot dog restaurant, some guy comes up to Anne and he's like flirting with her a little bit, and he says, hey, we have a job opening at my architecture firm. We need someone for research. Here's my card. Give me a call. So Anne now has a new job offer? Amy is complaining to Ben about how she hates her job and she doesn't want to work. And Ben's just like, well, it's okay. You don't have to work. Like, I'm going to take care of you. Ben's dad turns around and is just like, with what money? That is my money. You have nothing to your name. If you want to be a father to this baby, go get a job. Finally, an adult with some sense. In episode 20, Ben and Ricky start working at Ben's dad's sausage shop, which they'll actually keep this job for a cool minute. Ben having a job is quite comical to me. I'm sorry. Grace and Adrian don't want Amy to keep the baby because it's going to keep her tied to Ricky forever. They're pretty much only thinking about themselves. But Grace has a change of heart and actually ends up getting Amy a job at the church where she can get daycare and insurance. I don't think the church did an extensive background because honestly, Amy seems like a terrible candidate for this, but I guess when you're Grace, you can get anything done. And because Amy now has a job, she decides to keep the baby now. In the next episode, Grace and Adrian plan a baby shower for Amy. Well, Grace does most of the planning. Adrian stays in the room hooking up with her stepbrother. And Grace and Jack kiss at the baby shower. High self-esteem is just a very foreign concept when it comes to these young ladies, I'm sure. Adrian and her stepbrother stop seeing each other because Ruben, which is Adrian's dad, is sending him off to military school because he keeps seeing Adrian. Like, this is not normal. And Adrian's brother confesses his love for her, and Adrian's just like, George tells the family that he's moving out because he finally got a house and Ashley is actually gonna move in with him. Why is this just now happening? This could have been dealt with episodes ago, but good for Anne. On her way to the baby shower, Amy goes into labor. Episode 22 is probably my favorite episode of the season. While Amy's in labor, everyone comes by waiting for her to actually give birth. But more importantly, this is actually the flashback episode to when Ricky and Amy met at band camp, so we can see how exactly that night played out.
This could be the start to something big.
Cool. Be cool. Oh my god.
They did it on a couch, and it only lasted for 2 seconds. Free my good sis. In episode 23, everyone is at the hospital waiting for Amy to give birth. It's been a very long labor at this point. Ben and Ricky decide to be friends for the sake of the baby. I need Ben to leave. What jurisdiction does he have here? Grace tells Ricky that she's back with Jack again, and he's just like, I feel like you can do better, but good for you. Adrian's parents are trying to be together now so they can like actually be a family, so good for Adrian. Amy finally gives birth to her baby and they decide to name him John. Well, Ashley's the one that came up with the name. Ashley and George finally move out of the family home, only for them to move into the house next door. Only George would do something like this. Anne also has a new man. We get a callback to the first episode with Girlfriend by Avril Lavigne playing once again. We also see Grace taking birth control pills, and the episode ends with Ricky holding his baby and smiling at him. And that is the end of season 1. I would say overall this was a very solid season. I think most of the meat comes from the first like 7 or 8 episodes, and we get a lot of filler episodes in the middle, and then it picks up again at the end. I would say this season, I don't have any characters that I particularly really like. All of them are equally as annoying to me. But anyways, that is the end of this video. Part 2 will come out very soon, so stay tuned. If you like this video, let me know by giving it a like, and please subscribe to this channel. What are you waiting for? I really want to thank all of you so much for watching, especially if you made it to the end. Pat yourself on the back. We've been through the ringer here. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!